do some reading on, but for the most part, it really is actually very simple, and that's why I think sometimes tech companies forget about those kind of simple aspects. They're only thinking about the technology and not always about the consumer-facing parts of their product or service.
Yeah, I think asking questions is really important, and I think you can't have an ego about it either. I feel like a lot of attorneys feel like they have to have all the answers to everything, but you're never going to get all the information if you have to pretend you already have the answers. So, there are times when I sit down with engineers in my company, like, okay, explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, because that's literally how much knowledge I have about what you're trying to do here. And if I don't know how things are working, then I can't adequately protect the company. And I can't find all the potential ways in which, okay, maybe data is going to this place that no one had thought about, but if I don't ask that question, I'm never going to know that there's data being stored here. And that's essential to making sure that we're protecting it in the right way. If you don't ask those questions, you're never going to know, and you really just have to go back to basics and be confident in the skills and expertise that you are bringing to the situation, and not have an ego about the things that you're not.
I'm not sure I'll have anything to add. It's exactly, you will find out once you're practicing, if you choose to practice in tech, there's a lot of investigation. Engineers know a ton, and they will have to explain it certainly to me, like I'm 5 years old. I'm in-house counsel. I work a lot with outside lawyers, most of which are engineers. So sometimes, because the patent world is hyper technical, most of the time our outside lawyers can speak engineer. I cannot. So I'm the one, because I'm patent litigation, doing what they were describing, making sure that we're boiling it down to a place where a jury can understand it. Because sometimes our outside lawyers forget that not everybody knows what 802.11 E is. Maybe we should say Wi-Fi instead. Just a thought. That they can get into these hyper technical discussions, and for me as a non-technical person, I can more easily remember what non-technical people don't know, because most of the time I didn't know it before I started working at Dell.
Can I just add too that, like, as far as the whole asking questions thing that you guys have all been working on, I totally think that applies to just any type of law practice too. I feel like I learned so much at the beginning of my career just because I wasn't shy to ask probably stupid questions at the beginning, and so I think I may have learned faster that way. And as long as you have to try not to let your ego get in the way, like you said. Just I think in a legal career in general, it can really help to learn from others.
Yeah. So speaking of learning from others, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your guys' experience with mentorship, especially in the technology field. Sort of what the role of having a mentor or being a mentor has had for your career in tech specifically.
Pardon?
I can start since I already mentioned having a mentor earlier. I think that for me, having that person to go to ask questions to has been really helpful. Someone to not feel embarrassed to talk to like that. And not only that, though, getting to work second chair on those cases helped me learn very quickly, and so that now I'm first chairing pretty much all of my cases now at including some of these multi-state investigations. It just happens that because of my experience from working on past ones with my mentor, I developed a reputation among the multi-state community so that I'm actually able to lead some of those investigations at this point in my career. And I really feel like I owe it mostly to my mentor for all of his help and introducing me to the right people and that kind of thing. So it's been hugely influential, I think, on my career.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And when you think about it, especially for folks working in tech who don't have the credentials, for lack of a better word, my first mentor at my firm was one of the partners on this case that I mentioned before, and like me, he didn't have a technical background. Even as a litigator, he was doing totally different types of cases and kind of fell into the patent litigation space. So it was nice having that connection there. And it's like we spoke the same language, which was not technical language at all. But then the other side of it is when you're then in a position to be a mentor, I'm always encouraging, the younger attorneys at my firm who don't have a technical background not to shy away from the technical aspects of the case or push them off to someone else or feel uncomfortable, because the fact of the matter is, and it kind of goes back to something we said earlier, while we are lawyers and you feel like you got that credential and you passed the bar and you're supposed to know a bunch of answers, you got to get really comfortable with not knowing all the answers. And I think that's a big sense of discomfort for some folks. Once you get over it, then you start realizing you actually do know more than you think you did.
Yeah, and I think since this is a women in tech law panel, I think that it's really important to find someone, as a woman, to find someone who's supportive of women. Because if you're going to a law firm, even if you're going to a corporation, not everyone is going to be supportive in the same way. And, I found that in my career, so just be sure to seek out those people who are going to support you and give you the opportunities, and, and do what they say. I think it's hard to be, on the flip side of that, it's hard to be a mentor and to be giving advice and then that person is not taking any of that advice or not doing it. So when someone tells you what to do as a mentor and it seems like reasonable advice, take that advice, because that's the best way to give back to your mentor and make sure that relationship continues for the long term. But seek out those people who align with what you want to do and are going to be supportive of you as a woman, because it is still a male-dominated profession, and especially in tech, it's a male-dominated industry. So the people who are going to be supportive of women, whether that's women or men, find those people and do what they say.
I agree. Obviously, tech and STEM, women are still getting up there to being equal parts. But I will say certainly at my company, at Dell, and at most of the other big tech companies, there's a fairly strong female presence. The companies are working at it and they're getting it right, and women are there. It's funny, at the law firm, I used to be in the women's bathroom by myself, and at the company, that is absolutely not the case. My boss was in there with me. So it's definitely changing, and it's definitely changing, and there's lots of women that are in big roles. And I've had some official mentors, but I think that my actual mentors have been people that I work with. I've practiced law as a team sport my entire career, both at the law firm and in-house. All the big issues are things that we discuss, and that's how I've learned. So both at the law firm, just by practicing with really smart people and watching what they do, and you learn on the job. I learned an entire area of law on the job, and I really like it.
That's great, yeah. I think that is good advice for law students, just to be empowered to ask for help, especially if they find someone that they're interested in, and then, what Megan said, listening to their advice and taking it seriously. So just kind of on that same branch of advice for students, obviously technology is changing really rapidly and has changed for all of you guys throughout your career and throughout our lives. What would you say sort of are the big things in technology right now that you guys are looking out for as lawyers? And sort of this idea of how law students now can kind of, future-proof themselves of having a career in the future if they're interested in tech.
So it's funny, we are currently going through a process as to how we can make our jobs more efficient through technology. And so that's more what I was talking about before. We've all been talking about that kind of using technical tools to help your business, because you will all be in business for yourself in some way. So I think there's gonna be, artificial intelligence is continuing to improve, and especially in the e-discovery space, and for us, that's a pretty big topic of conversation. So if you're thinking about both from a litigation and a deal-making perspective, if you're doing due diligence, I think there will be a fairly up-and-coming artificial intelligence component in your careers, and I think it's new. I mean, it's gonna be, the law is going to be evolving right when you come out of school. I think the Internet of Things, and this is all, I guess, from a Dell perspective, but these are the things. The Internet of Things will be very interesting, as every gadget that we have is connected and documenting somewhere that will become discoverable, and trying to figure out how to get it, and where do you get it? I mean, like, I remember the first case I had where we had documents on a wiki, and it was, Wikipedia wasn't a thing. I didn't know what a wiki was. That's how old I am. Wikipedia wasn't out there. So trying to technically get the documents off of the wiki was like a weeks and weeks long ordeal that no one had ever done it. And we had all of these data experts trying to figure it out. It wasn't just lawyers, it was actual like computer science people that were trying to figure out how we got these documents off where it had been stored. So I think that figuring out how to get the data off the Internet of Things will likely be something that your generation of lawyers will be in the trenches on, because I haven't seen a lot of that come out, but I know it's coming. Trying to think, I think those are kind of right now where I see, at least for in my fields, there's a ton of change going on in patent reform and litigation. It's changing with the administration. The Supreme Court's had lots of major cases, so the law is truly evolving. I think for tech companies are hopeful that patent reform, it continues to get clamped down, because there's been, from our perspective, a lot of wasteful litigation, and I think that the law will start to clamp down on that, but the law is evolving, and I think it will be slightly different when you come out of school.
Yeah, I think e-discovery is a big one. I think that's probably the biggest change in the practice of law that I've seen since I started. Like you said, like the first case I had, I was in the basement of a law firm in Concord, New Hampshire, looking through bankers' boxes of documents, like 200 bankers' boxes of documents, and it was extremely dusty and not that fun. But that has evolved considerably, and now I'm seeing more and more law firms, and not just the big law firms, but small and mid-sized firms having an attorney that's specifically an e-discovery attorney, and that's their entire job, is to handle e-discovery and manage the programs and all of the rules and everything that go along with that. So
We have 3 in-house.
that's a whole job for a lawyer that didn't exist when I was in law school, and even right when I graduated from law school, and that's an ever-evolving field, and I think that is something where there aren't a lot of people in that role, and you can step in and be valuable on day one if you have that background, and you know the programs, and you know how they work. Another big area I think is data privacy. I know that's huge for my company. We're big data. We collect student data and have millions of records, and the biggest threat to our business is a data breach.
Security.
And security is a huge part of it, but data privacy, with GDPR coming out in May, I saw a report that said that it created 70,000 new data protection officer jobs worldwide, and those are attorney jobs, and those are jobs that attorneys have not been trained for, and those are jobs that senior partners or even senior associates in law firms nowadays aren't gonna take. Those are jobs that people sitting in this room are gonna fill, because you're the ones that are coming into that field and have that background. So I think that's a huge one.
I think those are great points, and those are ways, if you're business-minded, which I wasn't at your age, I should have been, but recognize that to be, if it's successful as building a book of, building a business, building a reputation, and these are up-and-coming areas, the privacy and security that you can build a practice on because no one else is doing it. The e-discovery space, again, like people have built whole practices on it, but they started 15 years ago and now they've become huge experts. There are fields that are just emerging now that your generation will be the experts on, and that you will be the guru in 10 years, because no one's doing it. So there's lots of opportunity.
I think those are both areas where you can come into a law firm as a first-year associate and be valuable, because no one else has that experience. And it's take the time now to really familiarize yourself with those things if that's of interest to you, because that's a way you can differentiate yourself. I've seen recently we have an outside data protection officer, and he told me about a deal that he was working on that he got pulled into because that was it was an acquisition, and the acquiring company looked at the company to be acquired and said, are you in compliance with GDPR? And they said, GDP what? And they said, we can't move forward until we know that you're going to be compliant with GDPR. They discounted the value of that business almost 20%, and the corporate attorneys who are working on that transaction were freaking out because they didn't know either. So they had to bring in someone else to hey, explain to me why this is a problem, what can we do, how can we triage this situation before this deal falls apart. If you're that associate, even if you're a first or second year associate that has that experience, and the senior partner has to come to you and say, help me, that's